What is cancel culture? Been hearing that phrase a lot in recent times, and I looked it up, and it actually means a form of boycotting or shunning involving an individual, often a celebrity, who is deemed to have acted or spoken in a questionable or controversial manner. It's pretty much just silencing anyone that you disagree with. This is not anything new. This has been going on since the beginning of human history. And there are other phrases to describe cancel culture like mob justice, the heckler's veto, and even deplatforming. One person who was fired for this movement of cancel culture was a Google engineer named James Damore. He was fired for writing an internal memo talking about the differences between men and women and how, because of those differences, women usually are not well represented in the engineering field. And because of that, he was deemed sexist and fired from his position. Another person was Megyn Kelly, who was fired from, I believe, NBC for talking about blackface. And she was just, in one sense, innocently mentioning that when she was younger, people would don blackface to dress up during Halloween for people that they wanted to be like celebrities. And she was fired for that. And some people think that they just used that as an excuse to fire her for other reasons. But it's interesting that that was the main reason, ostensibly, why she was fired, just for these comments about blackface, whereas other celebrities like Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Robert Downey Jr., Justin Trudeau, and even Joy Behar have all actually worn blackface, but have not faced any major repercussions like Megyn Kelly. Gina Carano was an actress for The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, was fired for some offensive tweets, and Dave Chappelle, the comedian, has been in the news for his comments on the transgender community. And speaking of that, Abigail Schreier is an author who wrote a book on transgenderism, and there's been boycotting of her books. Amazon has refused to put it on their site, and same with Andy No, wrote a book on Antifa, and many bookstores are not allowing his book to be sold. There have been protests regarding that book. Even historian and scholar Victor Davis Hanson, who just wrote a book called The Dying Citizen, has experienced attempts to block the promotion and distribution of his work on Amazon. And this is not even just for current people alive today, even those who have passed on, like former presidents, Washington, Lincoln, and Jefferson. These presidents' names have been wiped from San Francisco public schools after the school board decided to rename 44 schools that had ties to racism and dishonorable legacies. J.K. Rowling, a famous author of the Harry Potter series, has experienced backlash for voicing her fears that pushing transgender rights will endanger women's rights. And even though she has in the past been very liberal in her views, she is being canceled in a sense, where there's all these people who are coming after her and denouncing her and calling for a boycott of her books. And so this is going on more and more in this season, this idea of cancel culture. I think the rise of the internet, social media has helped accelerate this and brought this to a greater attention. But I think there are two main considerations regarding cancel culture and the church. One is that people who don't live up to societal or even biblical standards, expectations, and ideals, they should be given grace, because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. No one is beyond saving, transformation, and restoration. Moses, David, and Saul, before he became Paul, all murdered people, but the Lord did not cancel or reject them. Second, it is important to recognize that cancel culture targets anyone on the perceived wrong side of an issue for ridicule, silencing, and demonization. This becomes especially dangerous and destructive when the people being canceled are actually telling the truth. Believing and speaking truth often requires great courage. The people during Jesus' day literally accused, condemned, mocked, rejected, and killed the truth. And that same spirit that was in operation then is still influencing people today to do the same. The church has been called to confront this spirit and proclaim the truth with boldness, love, honor, humility, meekness, and respect. Interestingly, there were moments when Jesus told people not to tell others about him, or when he himself remained silent when questioned. It requires wisdom to know when to speak up and when to be quiet. This is why we are meant to be led by the Holy Spirit in all things, Romans 8:14. And so bless you to really be led by the Spirit and be awakened to this idea of what is going on in terms of this offensive spirit that's causing just this antagonism, opposition to views that people do not disagree with, to the point where they're silenced, ridiculed, rejected, mocked, destroyed even. And may we have the right spirit to defend those who are being attacked, even if we may not agree with them, because remember, our call is to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. And secondly, to also test the spirits, 1 John 4, to see whether they are from God and discern what is truth. And for us to have the wisdom and the sensitivity to know when to speak the truth in love with gentleness and respect.